So there has been a noticeable uptick in crackdowns and the number of arrests that have taken place in China with regard to dissent aimed at the Chinese Communist Party. Last year, Chinese law enforcement detained 726,000 individuals, marking a 47.1% increase compared to the previous year, as reported by the National People's Congress by the country's top prosecutor. These are China's own numbers. The increase occurred during a campaign against offenses deemed to be connected to hostile foreign forces. In addition, the Chinese Communist Party initiated formal legal actions against 1.7 million individuals, which is a rise of 17.3%. And this comes from the Chinese Communist Party's chief prosecutor, Ying Yang. Furthermore, Ying disclosed that over 2.4 million individuals were either detained or faced legal proceedings for crimes associated with, quote, national security, as vague as that sounds. These numbers represent the greatest per capita jumps for national security crimes in the 21st century for China and harken back to the Maoist era of China. Chinese authorities often use a broad interpretation to define what is considered illegal dissent or, quote, sharing state secrets. The CCP frequently accuses journalists, rights attorneys, and activists of national security violations, often for merely posting opinions online or sharing objective realities via video or photographs. Simply speaking bad about the CCP can lead to an investigation, and repeated offenses can lead to imprisonment. In Ying's annual report for the Supreme People's Procuratorate, which is basically the CCP's public prosecutor's office and honestly sounds like a division of the High Chancellor's office from V for Vendetta, he highlighted last year's aggressive, quote, strike hard initiative was focused on crimes associated with hostile foreign forces and targeted activities such as infiltration and separatism. Now, the preoccupation with foreign adversaries is evident in Hong Kong as well, where a new national security law is set to impose severe penalties for what is being called foreign-influenced activities. Currently, Chinese democracy advocate Jimmy Lai faces charges under the 2020 Hong Kong national security law, mainly due to his paper's editorials where authors published articles that were critical of the CCP. He wasn't even writing these articles. He was just charged for simply not stopping the articles from hitting his publication called the Apple Daily. Now, the fear of dissent and spinning the narrative is ever present in the Chinese Communist Party. For instance, the CCP attributed the November 2022 white paper protests to hostile foreign influence. During these demonstrations, protesters expressed their dissatisfaction with Xi Jinping's extended zero COVID measures by silently holding up blank sheets of paper. According to the CCP, these protests were caused by foreign influence. The CCP also blames external entities for recent mass protests in Hong Kong against policies related to national security, patriotism, and extradition. The hypocrisy from countries like China and Russia is rampant when it comes to foreign influence. The CCP and the Kremlin know that these protests are actually internally driven, but for them to admit that the white paper protests or the uprisings in Hong Kong or the Maidan in Ukraine were actually a referendum on their authoritarian influence would be political suicide. The irony for Hong Kong and Ukraine is that the foreign influence is objectively visible coming from the CCP's crackdowns or the all-out war that Russia has waged against Ukraine. Cheng Xiaofeng, a former Chinese detective, sees the surge in arrests as indicative of escalating social unrest, suggesting that 2024 and the years beyond will mark a period of increasing societal discord. This view is shared by the health nonprofit Yuan Ping, who interprets the arrest spike as a sign of either growing societal unrest or social resistance, or really just the CCP's efforts to preemptively get in front of the crisis by clamping down on dissent and protests. Additionally, proposed legal changes in Hong Kong will now lead to more people being charged with sedition, and this can be due to posting anything that the CCP-backed Hong Kong authorities see as damaging. Sedition carries a very hefty prison sentence in both Hong Kong and China. Moreover, the draft law proposes to extend police custodies without charges for interrogation purposes and imposes strict controls on legal representation, mirroring mainland China's restrictive measures and sparking concerns about potential human rights violations. Looking at these numbers and the laws that are driving the rise in arrests, it is clear that China and Russia are moving backwards towards old Maoist and Soviet tendencies, indicating the future looks quite bleak for freedom lovers in those two countries. And those in their direct sphere of influence will also feel the pain as well. But speaking of the possible social media crackdowns, the House passed the so-called TikTok ban, and it's not necessarily a ban. We'll see what happens. The debate is really swirling around here as to whether it's technically a ban or what ByteDance would do if it became law. ByteDance is the company that owns TikTok. Would they sell? Would they divest? Would they just shut it down out of spite? Will the Senate even pass this law? At this point, I'm not sure, but just in case, please go follow me on YouTube, where I post everything that I post on TikTok as well. YouTube might become the main platform if this so-called TikTok ban gains traction, and we'll just have to see where things go from there. In the meantime, my YouTube is at CPScott16. Again, it's at CPScott16, and you can see it on the screen here. Thank you all for following me. Have a good rest of your day.